Okay, so hi everyone, welcome to our second session of SAP, or the Social Academic Preparedness Project. Today we are covering how to balance your schedule during high school and meditation. So just to recap who we are, I'm Nicole Claren. I'm a rising junior at AOC. I'm also the president of the Creative Writing Club and secretary of the Science Club at AOC. As part of my secretary duties, I also help to manage AOC's Science Olympiad team. I'm also a student ambassador at We Connect the Dots. It's a New York-based STEM organization. We help instill technological skills into youth and young adults to help them in the modern workforce. We also help with codathons and help teach children how to code from 13 to 18 years old. I'm also a part of the outreach and media team for National Youth Week USA. It is a national organization targeted towards teen wellness and promoting a healthy discussion of mental health in teen spaces. Right now, we are working on our CASE program, conflict, anger, social, emotional program, which helps teenagers deal with their anger and conflicts in a healthy, non-harmful way to themselves and others. And I'm here with Terry.
Hello, everyone. My name is Teresa Gu. I am also a rising junior at Academy of the Canyons. I am the vice president of education at a nonprofit organization called Math Matters, where we help students K through 12 develop on their mathematics journeys. Currently, we are paired with another nonprofit organization called Peer 101, which works with autistic students. I am also the president of a community service organization called Music Magically. At Music Magically, we pair our more experienced musicians with our new musicians so that they can develop their instrumental skills. I am also an ambassador Girl Scout in the multi-level Girl Scout troop. In all of my roles, my main goal is to help everyone achieve their own pathways and their own aspirations. I'm also currently working towards an associate's degree in social sciences, and most of my classes lean very heavily on psychology.
So as always, we start off our SAP sessions with a bit of engagement with our question, how do you keep track of your schedule? So we can tell where we can start and what we need to cover. So as we wait for responses in the chat box, Terry, how do you keep track of your schedule?
Thank you so much for asking, Nicole. So I like to keep track of my schedule by using Google Calendar. I really like to use that one because it's super easy to schedule my events, and it's also very easy for me to add attachments and additional information that I need to prepare for my events.
And don't be afraid to type in the chat box if you have any ways to keep track of your schedule, whether it be physical, virtual, and those are elements that we will be addressing later on in our session. So if anyone doesn't have anything to say, we can move on to the bulk of our session. And this is where you might want to bring out your notebooks, because this is where you might want to take notes. We are going to be covering balancing schedules, especially in high school. It can be really overwhelming with tons of classes, teachers, and also piling on extracurriculars to balance schedules and figure out how to maintain that healthy work-life balance, and why it's important to help maintain that healthy work-life balance, because sometimes you overwork yourself, or you don't work too much and you fall behind, or you lose focus because you're doing too much things at once. So you need to make sure you take that time for yourself in your schedule.
All right, so before we get started and talk about how to schedule, let's discuss some terms that are really important when we're talking about scheduling. So we have events that can be time sensitive or not time sensitive. So events that are time sensitive are events or actions that we must do at a very specific time of day. For example, that can include attending our classes or going to meetings. There are also things that are not time sensitive. Oftentimes, this can include our tasks, such as doing homework. It doesn't really matter if you do your homework at 1 p.m. or at 5 p.m. As long as you get it done before your due date, you will be good. So you can schedule these times accordingly, depending on what works best for you. With all of that in mind, let's talk about how we can schedule these events. So when it comes to our time-sensitive events, we really want to write them down. We want to remember it so that we can actually go to our events. So you can do this by writing it down in your planner, in your schedule, on a Post-it note. People have a variety of ways on how to do this, and they can always choose what works best for them. We also have our events that are not time sensitive. So some people like to write all of them down on a to-do list, and it can be a very long to-do list that they just cross off throughout the day. For other people, they also just like to put it into their planner, similar to a time-sensitive event, but it's more like working log. You can choose whatever method works for you, because it matters to you on what you can accomplish. It's also very important for us to schedule downtime.
Okay, so obviously when you're scheduling, there are always time conflicts that you may run into. Two time sensitive events, a meeting, a class may run on top of each other. You may have a seminar you want to go to, but then there's also an extracurricular that may happen at the same time. So how do we deal with time conflicts when it comes to scheduling? Well, the main thing we need to do is prioritize. Is one of those commitments more important than the other? Is there one that you just can't miss and the other you can simply avoid and maybe have another chance. But if they're both equally important, then you can always try to reschedule um, or attend another session of that same, I don't know, meeting or extracurricular. So for example, when I'm dealing with time conflicts and both of them are of equal importance, I usually look to the organizers and see which one is more flexible in their times, or if it's a recurring thing, if I can say, hey, can I miss this meeting, but I can make the next one. It really depends on which commitment is more flexible in their times and which ones are strict and harsh and you have to make. Most importantly, though, it is important not to multitask. If you have one meeting on your phone and another on your computer, yeah, it's the best of both worlds, but also you're not going to be able to focus on each meeting as well as you would have if you've just scheduled them in different times. For example, multitasking can lead to increased stress levels, memory impairment, and decreased focus. And this can be very bad, especially if you're in class learning, but you're also in another meeting for another extracurricular. You don't want to make sure you devote your attention to one thing. So in order you either learn all the material you need to, or you take in all of the information you need to, it's important that you do not multitask so that you can get the most out of each event that you need to go to.
All right, Oliver's here. Should we? All right. So now let's move on to our next section where we talk about the difference between using an application that's physical or virtual.
So personally, I like to use more physical things to plan. I have a whiteboard that I write down all my due dates on. I order them in list of priority or which ones are fastly approaching and which ones are more farther away and I can push them behind a bit. I also have a bulletin in front of my desk where I pin flyers with important events that I may want to go to, or just like or just simple school events that I need to attend in order to do something. I also use post-it notes, specifically when my professors or my teachers mention an offhand comments like, oh, if you go to this specific seminar, then you can get extra credit for this, just small throwaway comments, and I stick up them in my folders. And in general, this helps my schedule stay intact.
So I use a lot of virtual applications. The two that I mainly use are Google Calendar and Notion. However, I do use Google Calendar a little bit more. So I really like going virtual with this because it helps me move around my events a little bit more. Oftentimes I experience a schedule change and it's super easy to just grab that event and move it onto the next day or shift the time. And when you use a virtual application, for example, like Google Calendar, you can add description notes and you can add in links onto your event so that your meeting is a click away and it's super easy to use. However, there is a dependence on the internet. So oftentimes you can just use your device. A lot of devices just have a notepad attached so that you can just jot down your notes there and then you can transfer it onto your application.
So here is an example of a healthy schedule, and I can go over a few things for some of you who might have joined a little later. So first off, they prioritize time-sensitive events or events that can't be moved, such as meetings. In this example, there's only one, but in like maybe a crowded day, you may have multiple time-sensitive events that you need to prioritize. So recognize how they have this time-sensitive event, such as a meeting, as prioritized, and then they structure their entire workday around that meeting so that they don't conflict with it. They also have these work periods where they deal with non-time sensitive events. As Terry mentioned earlier, for non-time sensitive things such as homework and assignments, you can always put it down on a to-do list, and you can block out a time in your day to work on that to-do list and knock out some areas. Also notice how work is split up into multiple sessions with a break to eat or to rest in between, because it's important to prioritize your mental health as you work. Personally, if I work for long periods of time, I have trouble focusing after maybe the 2-hour mark. So I need to take a step back and recuperate and re-energize, maybe with a snack, maybe talk to my family a bit, and then come back into work. So it's important to schedule rest times and break times in order to refresh your focus and go back into your work with a new rejuvenized eye.
Exactly. And I touched on this before a little bit briefly, but this person right here, they scheduled a bit of downtime. So between working and dinner, they took a moment to rest. Sometimes dinner can be kind of exhausting if you're preparing your own dinner. So taking that time to rest, taking that downtime to turn your attention back on yourself is super important to make sure that we have a good work-life balance. All right, so now that we talked a lot about forming our healthy schedules, we're going to be putting a link in a chat box to a Google slide. And on the Google slide, you'll see this type of format. You guys can write in your own tasks, your own events, and a description of it. And you can see how you want to schedule out your day. You can differentiate it between time-sensitive and non-time sensitive events and figure out how you want your day to look. You can make a lot of adjustments. You can copy and paste it multiple times to make it look like what your week would be. Or it can just be for one day, maybe a super busy day that you're going to be having, and just to figure out what you're going to be doing to make the most with your time. We're
And
going
we'll be giving you 15 minutes to complete this schedule or just to work it through. So we'll tell you when time is up.
All right, we only have a few more minutes left, so you guys can continue filling in your schedule, and then we'll be moving on to our next segment in a few minutes. All right, everyone. So our time is up for this section. I hope you guys really enjoyed our activity, and I hope that you guys can use this in your everyday lives or just as a reference. So next up, we're going to be talking about meditation. But before we get started, let's go ahead and define what meditation is. So one definition of meditation is to engage in contemplation or reflection. So this can be a reflection over things that have happened over a period of time or just over an event or so that happened in the day. Another definition that we can use is to engage in mental exercise to reach a heightened level of spiritual awareness. So I know that some people are into spirituality, but it can also mean to just get a better understanding of ourselves and be more aligned within us. So one really big part of meditation is about clearing your mind. So in our everyday lives, there can be a lot of stress. You might think about an upcoming meeting, you might be thinking about an exam, you could be thinking about your homework. And it's a lot of thoughts, and that can really worry us. So, whenever we're doing meditation, we want to cleanse our mind of a lot of these worrying thoughts and think about how we are feeling. We want to be aligned in our body, our emotions, and what's going on around us and feel okay within ourselves.
So there are many reasons why we should meditate. One of the first ones is understanding your struggles. As Terry mentioned earlier, meditation is all about learning about yourself, identifying yourself, how your wellness is and how you're doing. So it also helps you understand your struggles. You can realize as you're meditating and sitting, you can realize, oh, am I worried? Why am I worried? Why am I sad? How much time do I need to dedicate to bounce back? Things like that. There, you can also lower your stress levels in meditation. Meditation is mainly just, as Terry mentioned, clearing your mind, sitting down, maybe listening to music if you prefer to meditate with music, and just not thinking about any worries. You don't have to think about the incoming due dates coming in, the extracurriculars you have to deal with, any social interaction that you possibly stressed out about. You don't have to think about any of it. It's all about clearing your mind and focusing on yourself. It also helps you connect better with yourself, as Terry mentioned earlier, because meditation is just you sitting, you get to identify your problems, what you think is inhibiting you from either progressing in school or improving your focus. And it can also help you just become more grounded within yourself um, and help you find your identity more. It can also help you improve your focus. As I mentioned earlier, sometimes I feel overwhelmed by focus for a long amount of time. So I can't focus unless I step back for a bit and then return. So meditating is another way of taking a break. You can step back, listen to music, sit down, and just think about nothing and lower your stress levels and hopefully rejuvenate your quality of focus so you can go back into your work as rejuvenated and energized as ever so that you can focus better and improve the quality of both your schoolwork or extracurricular or whatever you were focusing on before you started meditating. It can also help reduce brain chatter. If you're thinking about something you heard on the news, something your friend said, or maybe an assignment that's coming up, you don't have to think about that when you're meditating. Meditating is purposefully relaxful and helps you reduce brain chatter and anything going on in your mind so you can improve your focus when you go back into whatever you were once doing.
Absolutely. And I know we talked a lot about defining meditation and how it benefits us, but let's also talk about how we can do this. So, a big part of how we meditate is when we draw attention to our own bodies. And this can be about our physical state or our emotional state and everything about ourselves. So, one of the things that we look at a lot when we meditate is breathing. So, there are a lot of different breathing techniques out there, and you can do a lot of researching until you find one that works for you. One of the most common ones that I've seen is box breathing. So, when people practice box breathing, they will breathe in for 4, they'll hold it for 4, they'll exhale for 4 counts, and they'll hold that for another 4 counts. And that kind of regulates your breathing pattern, and it can also impact your heart rate and bring you more physical balance. Another big part of meditation is reflecting on ourselves, and a big part of that is reflecting on our emotions. A lot of things happen in our everyday lives, and people can feel worried, they can feel anxious, they can feel stressed, and we can feel our emotions, we recognize them, we see them, we know what's causing them, and we can bring ourselves more attention and feel more okay. With all of that being said, let's go ahead and do 10 minutes of guided meditation. So in this video, they're going to be telling you a lot about how you meditate, and you can just follow along.
Welcome to the Daily Calm. Let's start today's session by finding a comfortable position with a tall, straight back. Allow your arms to rest gently. When you're ready, close your eyes. Bring full attention to this very moment, settling in and allowing the mind and body to still. And with openness, patience, and curiosity, bring your awareness to the breath. Taking a deep breath in and releasing it fully. Follow the breath as it flows in and out of your body. And taking one last deep breath before letting the breath settle. Allowing it to feel natural and easy. Don't try to force the breath or regulate it in any way. Just allow it to flow naturally on its own. And we'll scan down the body now, concentrating our attention from part to part. Start by bringing your attention to the top of your head and scalp, feeling whatever's happening in this area. You might feel tingling or heat, throbbing or soft vibrations. There may be strong sensation, or you might not feel much at all. Now lower your attention to your forehead, face, and jaw. Allow the muscles here to relax. On your next out breath, let that sensation dissolve. Lower your focus to the neck, letting the throat and sides and back of the neck soften. Notice any sensation that arises on the surface of the skin or deeper within. Now bring your attention to your shoulders, noticing if there's any tension or strain. Breathe into your shoulders, and if any parts feel tight, allow them to relax. Extend your awareness down the arms, towards the wrists, palms, and fingers. On the next out breath, allow them to soften. Now come to the chest, observing the rise and fall of each breath. Notice how the lungs expand and contract. Direct your attention to your upper and lower back. There may be some intensity, as this is an area where we commonly hold stress. If you notice any tension or warmth or discomfort, just observe what's there. With each breath you take, soften just a little bit more. Moving your focus around to your abdomen. Notice it expanding, filling up with air, and slowly emptying on the exhale. Then bring your attention to your pelvis. Notice where your body makes contact with the ground or your chair. And direct your breath into this area, relaxing into stillness. Now scan your legs, observing your thighs. Notice where they make contact with your cushion or chair. Lowering your attention to your knees, then your shins and calves. Let your legs soften and tensions release. When you're ready, breathe into your ankles. your feet and toes. Let them relax and become soft, sinking into a state of relaxed awareness. And as we near the end of the session, take a moment to notice how you feel. You may find that you're more relaxed, as this is often a common outcome of meditation. And this is one of the reasons why it's so helpful to meditate during times of stress. When we're experiencing stress, our amygdala fires up and it's difficult to make thoughtful decisions. So if we find our mind is clouded due to overwhelm, we can use meditation as a tool to calm the mind down. Ideally, we want to meditate in a preventative way so we don't get to that point. But the practice is here for you whenever you need it. And as we near the end of the session, bring your attention back to the room. Wiggle your fingers and toes, and slowly open your eyes. I hope you enjoyed today's Daily Calm. I invite you to bring this state of peace with you.
All right, I hope you guys enjoyed that 10 minutes of guided meditation. I think that they provided a lot of helpful tips, and we went over a lot of stuff today. So we're going to be doing an additional 5 minutes of meditation where you can employ all of your own techniques that we looked at today, as well as the things that we learned from our last video, for the next 5 minutes.
And so that's the end of our 5 minutes of free meditation and the end of our session. We have our SAP meetings every week on Fridays from 2 to 3, so we will also be hosting one next Friday, so hope to see you there. But for now, that's the end of this session, so thank you for coming.
Yes, thank you all for coming, and we hope to see you next week.
Bye.
Bye.